Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices is made possible in part by Allstate, the Searle Funds at the Chicago Community Trust, and CIBC.
Good evening y bienvenidos to Chicago Tonight Latino Voices. I'm Alex Hernandez of Univision Chicago Primera Hora, which airs every weekday morning at 5 and 6. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, Chicago's newly approved 2022 budget includes a year-long basic income pilot for 5,000 Chicago households. We'll dig in to what the city is hoping that money can do to help low-income Chicagoans financially recover from the pandemic. The latest developments at the El Milagro plant, where workers' protests have resulted in concessions from management and labor investigations by federal authorities. New Chicago Public Schools CEO Pedro Martinez talks about COVID safety and his vision for CPS. Dia de los Muertos is just around the corner. We have more behind the bread placed on altars during this holiday.
Latin sounds, Latin vintage sounds that trigger our memories, trigger our childhood.
And a little village business where you can get a haircut with a side of vintage vibes. First off tonight, the passing of Mayor Lori Lightfoot's 2022 budget on Wednesday sealed the deal on Chicago's first experiment with guaranteed basic income for low-income residents. In her remarks after the budget passed, Mayor Lightfoot said the money is intended to help keep working families afloat as the city continues its pandemic recovery.
What we also know is that having extra income consistently for some time can make the difference for the working poor who are living on the cusp of financial ruin. That's why $35 million of the $157 million that we're investing in family assistance programs will fund the largest pilot program in the country, providing $500 a month to 5,000 families with cash assistance to lift them up out of poverty.
Similar guaranteed income programs have been tested in smaller cities in recent years, including Gary, Indiana, and Stockton, California. And Los Angeles recently announced its own basic income pilot for 3,000 households there. Joining us now to hear their take are 36-ward Alderman Gilbert Villegas, whose ward includes parts of the Hermosa, Belmont-Cregent, Montclair, and Portage Park neighborhoods, Enrique Estrada, CEO of the nonprofit human services organization Metropolitan Family Services. Thank you both for joining us. The details are still very limited at this point, but to recap, the program will distribute $31.5 million from the annual budget. 5,000 low-income households in Chicago will receive $500 every month for a year. I want to start with you, Alderman Villegas. What are the thresholds for income for recipients, and how will they be selected for participation?
Yes, so thank you, Alex. This initiative here was started by my committee. We had held hearings in February and introduced an ordinance in April. Unfortunately, the mayor didn't call it, and she just incorporated it into the budget. But the way that we envision it and what we learned from the hearings is that in Stockton, California, these types of programs really uplifted families and quite frankly, allowed some families, the head of the household, to find a better job. Right now, the program specifics are still being worked out. I think that my team will be working with the mayor to identify that. But initially, when we spoke about the program, we wanted to focus on families that met the 300% below poverty level, CPS parents that had children enrolled, since 90% of them can apply for free lunch. And then also single parents, single moms. We wanted to make sure that this $500 a month allow them an opportunity for those folks especially that are working to continue to work with dignity.
Enrique Estrada, can you give us an idea also of the need for this program, particularly in the Latino community?
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for having this important conversation. As you know, the need is great in the Latino community, Latinx community, certainly in other communities as well. As I think we all know that people, especially over the last 2 years, have been struggling on a variety of different, in a variety of different areas because of the pandemic. You know, and as well as the alderman knows, that Latinos have been the most disproportionately impacted in terms of losing their jobs. And so if you're losing your jobs, it's pretty hard to make a living. The people that we serve at Metropolitan, we serve over 100,000 people a year. Now, 92% of those people would qualify for this program. So whether you are Latino or African American or poor white, if you're receiving our services, you qualify for this program based on the assumptions that if you make less than $35,000 a year, which is poverty level for a family of 6, you would qualify for this service. Now imagine the great benefits of having this guaranteed income of $500 a month. So we're thankful to Alderman Villegas for coming up with this idea, and now to the mayor for helping push it along.
And actually, Alderman, like you said at the beginning, you were an early proponent of the basic income here in Chicago, based in part on your own childhood experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
No, absolutely. And one of the biggest prohibitors of having a guaranteed basic income, we've been talking about this for 2 years, but was funding it. And when the American Rescue Plan funds were identified, I immediately called the White House to find out if, under the Treasury rules, would cash assistance be an acceptable appropriation? And I was told that it would. And so that's why we moved forward hastily, because we wanted to get the hands in the cash into the people as soon as possible. Listen, my dad died when I was 8 years old, and my mom had to raise 2 boys in Lathrop Homes, which is the Chicago Housing Authority. And my mom worked, and she was able to benefit from a program called Social Security Survival Death Benefits, which gave her a stipend of $800 a month until we were 18. So she was able to get $800 a month until we were 18, which allowed us to do a couple of things. It allowed her to work with dignity, number one. It allowed her to pay for childcare. It allowed her to make sure that we had food and clothing. But it also allowed, as neighborhoods got a little bit rougher, the ability for us to move out and try to get to a safer neighborhood. So that safety net was huge. And both me and my brother went to the Marine Corps, and we paid our debt back to the government. And I would also say that we've been taxpayers since we were 18, and over 30 years of paying taxes, we've doubled and tripled that payment of that investment in us.
A lot of people would say that 500 maybe isn't a lot a month. So, Rick Estrada, how can really $500 a month make an impact, a difference in the lives of the people you work for?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and it's that it'll make their lives less complex and complicated. And Alderman Villegas hit it right on the head when he said it'll allow people to live a more dignified life. Because let's say you're at the poverty level, right? You're a family of 4, you're at $26,500, you're struggling. In this city, you're struggling to pay the rent and the bills. But let's say we make it, right? We figure out how to make it on that low amount of money, but then your car breaks down. And where are you gonna get that money? This guaranteed income will allow you to pay that bill, that repair. And the other thing I would say is we're providing this service in a piecemeal fashion already through the different relief money that we've received over the last 12 months or so. But it's being done in a piecemeal fashion. The people have to wait in line to get food. People have to wait in line to apply for rental assistance. They have to wait in line to apply for other types of assistance like utilities. Here now it's guaranteed, and you give them back their time and their dignity. They're not out waiting in some line to see if they qualify for food or diapers on a first come, first basis. So it's just the time has come to do this. It's a great pilot and a great idea.
Alderman, how do you respond to remarks from other city council members that this money should go to reparations or violence prevention instead?
Yeah, so we had this discussion during the debate, and it's not an either or. In the ordinance, I specifically put in the ordinance that if the city of Chicago passes some type of reparations program, that if you were a recipient of reparations, that you would not be prohibited from participating in this program. So the reality is that some of the aldermen that opposed this actually represent communities that could benefit from this program. I mean, you have East Garfield Park and West Garfield Park. Its median household income is $21,000 a year. They would immediately be eligible for this type of program. So I think that it was a lot more about educating my colleagues. As you saw, the budget passed with the guaranteed basic income pilot in there. So we do need more money for violence prevention, but we also need a guaranteed basic income program as well.
I want to thank both of you for joining us today. Unfortunately, our time is up, but thank you for speaking with us in this important topic. Alderman Gilbert Villegas, Enrique Estrada.
Thank you, Alex.
Since last month, production line workers at the El Milagro tortilla factories have organized walkouts and rallies with the help of workers' rights group Arise Chicago. The workers sought to call attention to what they say are unsafe working conditions, unfair labor practices, intimidation from management, and incidents of sexual harassment. The workers notched the victory this week, but they say there's still more to be done. Arise Chicago's Laura Garza gave Latino Voices an update on the latest developments.
The workers came forward and filed charges. One of those charges is regarding the sick day ordinance in Chicago that El Milagro has been violating. The second charge has been the odriza, which is, workers are not supposed to be working 7 days straight. And that's actually been happening in El Milagro for a very long time. It's not just through the pandemic. And so just recently, obviously, the Milagro announced that they're not going to have Sundays off. So obviously, that's a big victory for the workers. But in addition to that, workers filed charges with the National Labor Relations Board in regards to some of the threats they've been, encountering with supervisors and also with the anti-union consultants that El Milagro hired 2 months ago to really, settle things down in El Milagro.
And longtime El Milagro employee Martin SALAS was one of the first workers to speak out about the conditions at the factories. He says that although workers are still not calling for a boycott of El Milagro products, well, the community has shown their support to the workers' fight. Let's listen.
¿Verdad que somos del Milagro, que estaban cometiendo injusticias con nosotros y que no se estaban dando no públicamente, ¿verdad? Y que gracias a ustedes, vuelvo, repito, y no me voy a cansar de repetirlo, que gracias a ustedes que nos ayudaron muchísimo, ¿verdad? Que se han logrado muchos cambios, pero no, nunca hemos hablado acerca de un boicot, ¿verdad? Pero si la comunidad lo quiere hacer, pues yo no puedo decir, no lo hagan, ¿verdad? Porque es como un apoyo hacia nosotros por lo mismo de lo que estábamos pasando, ¿verdad? Que quieren también transparencia y quiere que la comunidad quiere que vea que nos están tratando, como yo lo he dicho, con respeto y dignidad, como cualquier trabajador de cualquier empresa.
Chicago Tonight did reach out to El Milagro ownership for comment, but we haven't received a reply yet. El Milagro Workers Community and Arise Chicago are remembering the 5 workers who died last year from COVID-19 in a Dia de los Muertos event this Tuesday. You can find out more on our website. Up next, we hear from new CPS CEO Pedro Martinez. Stay with us. Chicago Public Schools is now under new leadership at a difficult time for the district. Pedro Martinez has taken the helm as the new school CEO. He most recently served as head of the San Antonio's public schools, and he's a former CPS graduate himself. He joins the team as data shows a steep drop in the number of students enrolled as the district approaches a vaccine rollout for kids ages 5 to 11. Earlier this week, Brandis Fredman spoke with Martinez to learn more about the district's current COVID-19 protocols, its strained relationship with the Chicago Teachers Union, and graduation rates. She began by asking him for an update on CPS COVID testing and contract tracing efforts.
First of all, our contact tracing, our COVID testing significantly has been ramped up, significantly improved from when we started the school year. And I'm seeing COVID cases at an all-time low. We have been hovering less than 200 cases per week for students. And remember, we have over 330,000 students in person almost every day. And with almost 40,000 staff, we're seeing well under 100 cases of staff having COVID. With that, though, I will say this: we are quarantining way too many students, and that is not what I'm hearing. So I'm hearing less concerns about safety. I'm hearing more concerns from both my staff and my parents about the fact that we're quarantining too many children. And so in the next few weeks, we're going to be working with the Department of Health and following national and state guidance about how to use COVID testing in a more strategic way so that we lessen the quarantine of children.
Now, the district's, in the past, the district's relationship with the Chicago Teachers Union has been strained, to put it mildly. Are you hopeful that you can mend fences, and what is that relationship like so far?
Well, I was able to have dinner with both Jesse and Stacy, the leadership of the CTU. And, what we talked about is just, since the time that I've been gone, there's been a lot of trust that's been lost over the last decade. I've been gone for about 12 years. And we both talked about how do we start rebuilding that trust. And so we made a commitment to at least continue to talk, to meet on a regular basis, to discuss issues. I think we have more things in common than we have apart. So that's going to be my goal. My goal is to work with them. They are a critical partner for us in terms of as we move the work forward. And I want them at the table. And so, that was my commitment to them is let's at least meet, let's talk. We'll have differences, but I think the majority of the time we'll have more things in common.
Okay. CPS also released its yearly report card recently showing a record high graduation rate as well as a record low dropout rate, and almost all students having developed a graduation plan as a part of the district's Learn, Plan, Succeed program. To what do you credit such a low dropout rate, especially during the second year of a pandemic when engagement is a challenge and enrollment numbers have already fallen?
So first of all, I couldn't be prouder of our high schools. Last year, one of the things that I saw in our data is that we had almost 6,000 12th graders that were disengaged. They were at risk of not graduating. And the high schools leveraged the relationships they had with our students. One of the things that I'm seeing across our high schools is the relationships. When I talk to our students and I ask them, do you have somebody in the school that you can trust, that you can go to when you're worried about something? And I'm hearing consistently from our students that they do. And we're seeing it in the data. When you look at even our enrollment drops, our highest numbers of enrollment are in the high schools because the children are not dropping out, they're staying in school. I'm seeing amazing programming across the high schools that are engaging the children, pathways and things like in green energy, like solar tech, but as well as computer science, IB programs, fine arts. And so I think all of these items are contributing. And when you look at our graduation over the last 10 years, before I left, our graduation rate was no more than, it was under 60%. And now we're well over close to 84% on a 5-year graduation rate, on a 4-year over 80%. And I'll tell you, districts our size, you don't see these kind of high graduation rates, but not only that, almost 70% of our children are going to college. They're generating over $1 billion in scholarships. So I'm just very proud of our high schools, but of course, it's a team effort between our elementaries and our high schools together.
Again, that was new Chicago Public School CEO Pedro Martinez speaking with Brandis Friedman earlier this week on Chicago Tonight. You can find the full interview on our website, WTTW.com/news. Up next, getting a haircut with a side of vintage vibes. Listen to this. Nearly 700,000 of Chicago's residents claim Mexican heritage. And over the years, Mexican culture, from food to music, has become woven into the city's tapestry. A new business in Little Village explores where the Midwestern meets Mexican by combining haircuts with deep cuts. Chicago Tonight's Erica Gunderson recently brought us this story. Here's another look.
The sound of a neighborhood barbershop, friendly chatter, clippers buzzing, and scissors snapping is unmistakable.
Did you get that on Amazon?
But folks getting a trim at Del Pueblo Barbers and Records are also hearing the soundtrack of a Midwestern Mexican childhood, from vintage rancheras the Chicago house.
I remember there was a bar on Racine when I was a little boy, and a lot of people from Texas are in Chicago. So the big Texas sound of like Little Joe and the Family and Flaco Jimenez and things that were like what they call cantina music. I just remember getting my aunt to tell me, go tell your uncles that dinner is ready. And I already knew where to go get them because they were all sitting down at the bar. And I remember going up to a bar stool and like, hey, dice mi tía que está lista la comida.
For barber and co-owner Jonathan Guzman, those sounds were just part of growing up Chicano in Chicago.
There's the Chicago Midwestern Mexican, which stands alone, and we're one of a kind. We maintain our identity, but when we speak English, we sound like we're from the West Side. You know, when we dress, we got the Sox hat. You know, we're very Chicago, very American, very urban.
Jonathan says his skill in the tonsorial arts also stems from his childhood.
I started cutting hair out of necessity. We didn't have the money to go to a shop every 2 weeks and get a haircut. So my mom had a pair of clippers and had shears, and she cut my dad's hair, she cut my brother's hair, and she would cut my hair, but she would cut my hair in a way I didn't want it. So I learned to cut my own hair. And then my friends in the neighborhood who were also in the same situation decided that I was gonna be the guy who would cut their hair.
When the opportunity arose to open a shop in the heart of Little Village in July 2020, Jonathan and his business partner Leo Guzman, no relation, jumped at the chance to create a place where the Midwestern Mexican would feel right at home.
We do things a little differently that I've noticed here than other cities. We're very proud of who we are in Chicago, you know, and I think that's what community is all about, right? Is making other people feel like you're one of them, you know, and I definitely feel that here. You know, I might not look 110% Mexican. They call me Widow for a reason, but it definitely, you know, it feels like home.
All around the shop are the sounds and signifiers of Chicago Chicanos, from the locally made art and merchandise for sale to the vinyl records they sell and play on an in-store turntable. Leo Guzman, who also DJs, manages the music collection.
Our collection basically is made up of Latin American music. We try to focus on las norteñas, mariachi, rancheras, tropical music, from cumbias to salsas. You know, we have music from Tigres del Norte, you know, or Broncos de Reynosa, where, you know, they mention Chicago, you know, and they mention certain streets, they mention Little Village. And that's really what I like. You know, I like to, you know, tell a story through music. A lot of the music that we try to play here is also new. You know, we try to promote new bands.
You know, everything is done here. Everything is done locally. And from the beginning to the end, except probably for the actual making of the t-shirts, which are probably made in China. I'm sorry. Everything else is done here. And it's providing income for everybody down the line.
Jonathan and Leo say they're hoping Del Pueblo can be a place for Chicagoans, Chicano or not, to celebrate the unique blend of cultures that is Little Village.
I see the little kids who are looking for an identity, who are looking for a space, who are looking for a place to identify. And if you offer them some turntables, they can learn about Chicago house music or freestyle music. They can learn about how Chicago and Little Village and Pilsen influenced the world sound.
It's a safe space where you can come by and socialize and get creative, ultimately. You know, I encourage everybody to come by, share their music with us too, because that's ultimately what this space is for, is to keep that culture flowing, you know, and keep the next generation interested.
For Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, this is Erica Gunderson.
You can find more on Del Pueblo Barbers and Records on our website. Well, you may know Dia de los Muertos starts on Monday. It's a time when people come together to remember their loved ones. A bakery in Pilsen has been busy preparing more than 3,000 Day of the Dead traditional breads for the community. Artemio Casas, baker and manager at Panadería Nuevo León, says this year they've had to cut the production of bread in half due to a lack of workers. Despite the obstacles, Casas says it makes him happy to see customers coming, wanting to be part of the holiday.
Siendo un inmigrante llega uno y con ilusión de tener un buen trabajo y hacer algo para uno, para la familia, y muy orgulloso de estar haciendo pan de muerto. Para nosotros los mexicanos es sumamente importante porque recuerda el día de los, que viene siendo el Día de los Muertos. El pan, el horario para empezar es a las 4 de la mañana. Ya no tiene fin hasta como a las 6 o 7 de la noche viene uno acabando de cocinar el pan. Muchos usan el pan pequeño para el Día de los Muertitos, de los angelitos, de los niños, y ya para los adultos el pan grande.
Panadería Nuevo León has been serving the Pilsen community for the past 49 years. You can find more information on the Day of the Dead celebrations on our website. And that's going to be our show for this weekend. Don't forget to tune in to Primera Hora on Univision Chicago every weekday morning. I'll be waiting for you. Next week on Latino Voices, Michael Puente from WBEC will be here in the host chair. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, I'm Alex Hernandez. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that's proud to serve its community through pro bono legal services.